hitting record and starting our show. Welcome all. Thank you again for being here. So as you've been checking in with me, I've learned that a lot of our congregations do use fundraising special events for fundraising at year end. And this year, we're all trying to figure out, what does that mean for us? How are we going to do this? So I want to give you some tips today on how you can proceed with your plan, either if you're doing it this fall or if you're postponing it to the spring. Who knows what 2021 is going to be like? We may still be doing things online then. So we'll give you some tips and tools about that. We're going to walk through some of the more common platforms for hosting auctions, for selling tickets, and for raising money or collecting donations. This is not an exhaustive list, and these aren't things that I am recommending necessarily. I'm just presenting you with some options and their various costs. As you'll see, they come at all kinds of price points, from free to super expensive, depending on the kinds of events that you're running. And all of the tools that we'll be talking about are things that you can really integrate easily into your social media so that you have lots of channels and ways for people to be able to participate. So as you're coming through these events, you're already creative people, and you know that events are creative events, but because they're virtual, because they're all going to be happening online, we need to be even more punchy about the way that we promote and sell these tickets and get people organized. So one of the things I love, especially for congregations that do like an annual gala, continue to sell your tickets and just come up with these creative ticket packages, right? So like, trade in your high heels for fuzzy slippers, join us in your bathrobe, we won't judge you. Whatever it is, no worry about the vegan entree because you're preparing it yourself. So have a little fun with this and let people know that you have a sense of humor. They should have a little sense of humor about that. This is an event, and you're trying to get people together to have some fun. What kinds of events can you do online? Well, you've mentioned a lot of them. I love talent shows online, and Zoom gives us all that sort of little box, but with no gong to ring. I guess you could mute someone if you really needed to. But it's a wonderful way to have a talent show and get people looking at each other, performing, enjoying. If the live performance on Zoom isn't a thing you want to do, you can have people send in pre-recorded YouTubes, TikToks, employ your Gen Z kids to teach you how to do all of these great things. But there are lots of ways that you can do talent shows, and they're absolutely translatable online. We'll walk through in a little bit, like how you might sell tickets for it, how you might queue it up, how you might use Zoom or other platforms to do that. I love the idea of dinners. So just as Jay is modeling for us, eating his dinner while we are on Zoom, you can do that with your whole congregation. And if you pick a local caterer and everybody goes and picks up their bag and brings it home, and they eat that meal together on Zoom, it's a great way to still share a meal and be in company with each other and all be eating the same things. So if dinner, like a crab feed I heard, chili feeds, if you do a big sort of catered lunch to end your stewardship campaign, there's no reason why you can't do that virtually this year and find a way to use Zoom or other tools to do that. Food is social no matter how we do it, if it's on a screen or if it's in person. So please do continue to do your dinners. You might even find ways to sell tickets to them, and we can talk that through as we go forward as well. Craft fairs, bake sales, I heard about the bazaar and things like that. Yes, this Zoom and other platforms make it really possible for you to show things, to laugh about them, bark up the items, have some sort of either price, so you're using a tool like a donation tool online to have people buy something, or if you're doing, later we're going to talk about auctions, if you're using auction software, you can find ways to bid up items and be really excited about that. Keep going with all of these ideas. They are all possible to do online. And I've heard many of you talk about them already this evening. When we are gathering in person, a few best practices. Keep it short. So 2 hours is really long for people to sit in front of a screen, even if they're having fun and seeing their church family and having a great time. So try to keep it under 2 hours, and that includes all of the things. If you're doing an auction, if you're doing a meal, if you're doing watching a video together or something like that. 2 hours is about our attention span. Um, my attention span on Zoom grows less with each month that we spend on Zoom. So keep in mind that everyone has been on Zoom for months to do their work, to do their school, to do their church. So now they're also joining you to do this. Be merciful. Make it as much like an in-person gathering as you can. So forgetting the fact that we're looking at each other through screens, you can still do things that make it feel like we are all together and having a good time. You can use music and slides to cue things, and you can have entertainment and things like that. So do keep that in mind as you're planning an event. You can still have fun, still use music. You should have special guests at your event if it's for outreach. If your event is to raise money for your outreach, you should invite people who benefit from that. If you're supporting like a single nonprofit with your event, or if you have maybe a client or someone who's used your services that would be willing to share a story about what you do, and it's all good and there you have all the permissions, create a video or invite them into that moment to share their story with you. It is so much more authentic when people who are benefiting from our ministries are able to tell us in church what they receive and what they're getting back. If you don't feel comfortable bringing them in, or they don't feel comfortable, you can collect their stories and tell them through other people's voices as well. It's just very authentic, I think, when the people who benefit from our mission and our ministry get to tell us what they're doing and maybe express thanks for it. It gives everybody a good feeling. Fund a need and text to give. So many events, and we'll go through these a little bit more specifically in a bit, have some kind of competitive element to them, where you're funding the need, where you're raising a paddle, you're saying how much you want to give. This is absolutely possible to do online. You just need to find some software that gives you the ability to have people text in real time a donation, have it show up on the screen, say, you know, our thermometer is growing, we're raising all this money, it's really cool. So fund a need and text to give are ways that we can use the software that we'll be talking about today to do these types of events as well. You get instant gratification, right? Somebody makes a gift, they see their name online. Davey just gave $1,000. Yay, everybody can celebrate that. It's wonderful. One of the pieces of software that is really good for this is Tithely. You may already be using Tithely for your virtual offering plate. If not, it's pretty easy to implement and download. They just last week released a whole bunch of new features for churches to use for their fundraising. It's a pretty robust, good platform. It's very economical. You also get a discount on using it because they've negotiated a deal with TENS, and TENS has a negotiated deal with the Diocese of California. So you all get a big discount for using Tithely if you wanted to implement it. So think about that. It's a great tool to do Fund a Need. And we'll walk through in a little bit about how you might be able to use that and what it looks like. Selling tickets. So, well, I should stop. Any questions so far on things that I've mentioned? I can put us into the big chat if you want us to talk with each other. Shout out if you want that, or I'll just keep going. I don't see any hands raised. All right, you're just all soaking it up. Great. So let's talk about selling tickets. Tickets, whether you are doing a free event and you want people to register, or you're doing a paid event and you want people to sell, to buy tickets, and even if you want to find ways for people to sell those tickets, to like go out and sell them in blocks, or to treat their friends, or create groups and tables of people at a dinner, things like that. Eventbrite is a really low cost, really great way to sell tickets or to register people. It is free to set up, which means you don't have a monthly cost or any upfront costs. The only costs that come with it are when you actually do sell a ticket, and then that gets passed on to the donor if they select the tab to add to their ticket price, the cost of the transaction, or it gets subtracted from what they send to the church at 5.5 or 7.5%, depending on how big the ticket is and what kind of volume you're doing. That's a pretty steep transaction cost, I will give you that. But if you're doing tickets for an event, $100 or something like that, you're asking people to contribute another 5.5. They may be willing to do that, and it might be a way for you to do it. Eventbrite does not include auctions or donations in its platform. It is really just about running an event. And you can use their platform to run your event online. They have some tools. Or you can use their platform just to sell the tickets and run your event on other platforms. They give you a lot of varieties, but this is a free one, and it's completely integratable in all your social media. Many of you have talked about auctions, and we're about to go through a series of slides that talk about all the various auction software. But the one that is free, I heard, Nicole, I think you said that somebody was using 32.
Yeah, we're looking at that one, and another organization I know is using that one.
So that's also a good one. I haven't reviewed it today, but it's also a great one, and it is free. eBay for charity is a really good one. It has name recognition. People know how to use eBay. They've probably used it before. But you have to do a few things to use it for a church. eBay for charity is different from eBay for consumers and merchants. So you'll have to register your church with the process. It doesn't take long, and it's not a hard process, but they do require that there's some kind of verification that you have nonprofit status as a church. So that can take some time. It usually takes 3 business days, but I would allow for a couple more in the time of COVID because everything takes longer. Also, it's free. So did I mention that? It's free. It's a great platform, and it's a really easy way to use it. People know about it. It integrates with PayPal. So if people are using PayPal to fulfill their pledge or their payment, it's already integrated into eBay. And so people can bid on something. When they win the bid, they use PayPal. It's all done. And the money comes to the church, either in a check or in a wire transfer as you have selected. The other thing that eBay for charity allows, and I heard some of you, I think Ron, you were talking about the crowdsourcing element and casting a net that's wider than just the usual suspects in your church. eBay for charity allows you to make your auction visible for people outside your network. So that could be that everyone from St. Clair's Pleasanton has a link to get into your auction. And so it's just your folks who are using it. But if you open that auction up to the whole world, then people can bid on your items from other places. Now, there are some downsides to that. The first is you have to fulfill these items somehow. So if there are people who are from far away, you've got to figure out a way to get it to them if they win the bid, but it does increase your reach. It also, it is great, and I've used this tool before. It is really wonderful for casting a wide net. But if somebody really wants an item and they bid it really high and it takes it away from the community feel, so somebody comes in and they're willing to pay whatever for that item, well then your own church no longer can bid on that item because it's kind of out of their league. If that matters to you, and it may, then sometimes opening up to a wider audience can lead to things being kind of snapped up before your own group gets a chance to do it. It's not a reason not to, it's just something to consider. With eBay, you can also set ceilings and maximums and minimums so that if an item is getting really hot, you can say, cut it off now, give other people a chance to bid or whatever. So anyway, it's a good tool. Oh, Jay, you had a question. You wanna ask it out loud?
Well, no, two things. One, back to Eventbrite. When I used that in the past, we actually were able to set it up where there wasn't an option. We told Eventbrite that the people who were buying tickets had to pay the processing fee, so that it didn't offset our costs. And most people understood that and were okay with it. And then what we did was, if they didn't want to pay the processing fee, they could just write us a check and send it to us, so that it didn't cause a problem.
Great.
And the other one is, we are using eBay for charity right now. And one of the things that I really like about it is that it also allows other people to put things up for sale, right, and give you the benefit of a percentage of their proceeds, anywhere from 10% up to 100% of the proceeds of the sale, without you ever having to do anything. Right. And so it gives us another opportunity for someone who happens to have time and is cleaning out their house to put things up on eBay and give us the money without us having to actually list the item.
Yeah, I love that. So that's the difference between direct selling and community selling. They give you that, and those are choices you make when you set up your auction. You can open those up so that really it's just as Jay said, people can kind of go through and put up their own items and give you the proceeds. It's kind of a really good, it's one of the best options, I think, and it's free, by the way.
Yeah, we've been doing it for about 3 weeks and have made about $100 already.
Why not?
On pretty much junk.
Good. That sounds like a church bazaar to me. Wonderful. Well, so that was the free option. I'm going to go through a couple that I consider sort of mid-tier, and then we'll go through a couple that are like enterprise tier. They're more expensive, but they have more bells and whistles. So a mid-tier one that's really good, a lot of people use benefit events. It really integrates nicely with all your accounting software. So if you are issuing tax, you will have to issue tax letters and things like that. When people win this, it will kind of integrate with what, if you're using QuickBooks or FileMaker Pro or even more sophisticated accounting systems, it will integrate really nicely in it. It has its own payment processing component, so it's not relying on, for example, PayPal or something like that. You can do mobile bidding, so it'll put your stuff up on a website, but it'll also put it as a link on your phones so that people can bid. You can open up your auction like all week long, and you can send little teasers, and people can be, you know, wherever they are, and they can bid on things. It's pretty exciting. It does have a setup fee. $500 is pretty reasonable. if you're going to do an auction that's going to really make you some money. And you'll notice that the transaction fee, which includes the payment processing, is 8%. So that's expensive. And if your auction does more than 25 grand, well, then that goes down to 5%. But so it's a pretty high threshold. It's also a good service. Octria, a lot of churches are using this one, and I know of one in Los Angeles that just really tricked out a great auction with this software. It's a little lower setup fee, between 200 and 400 bucks. The credit card transaction is really low. So this is a really good reason to use this. It has its own payment processing, so it's not relying on yet another vendor. Also mobile bidding. So I would recommend, if you're doing an auction, you have a little bit of money to spend and you want a few bells and whistles, this and then the next one we're going to look at are really good tools. The next one is Bidding for Good, and Ron Colmer asked about this one earlier. I've used this one many times for churches and for nonprofits. It's been around for a while, and so it has some market credibility. You can do a little bit more than just an auction on this platform. You can also run your sponsorships. So if your event usually has some kind of corporate sponsor, or the sandwich shop down the street usually kicks in some money or something like that, you can build that into this portal, so those payments can all be done online and people can get credit for it, and it's kind of shown up on the screen, you know, courtesy of Sal's Body Shop or whatever, right? So, so you can do that with Bidding Through Good. It connects you. Again, this is like eBay for charity. You can stay local, keep it just with the people who have a link to your charity auction, or you can make it national or global and have people bidding on your stuff from all over. The fees, they do take a percentage, and it's completely based on the volume that you do. They're pretty low. They're not as high as that 8% one, but they're a little more than the 0.5% one. So it can vary. Again, it's based on the volume. You'll want to do your own due diligence. Ron, you asked about this specifically. Have you investigated Bidding for Good or used it before? Do you have things to say about it? Maybe Ron's gone. Maybe Ron checked out.
Davey, I can tell you what my experience, I ran some auctions for my son's school on Bidding for Good. Oh. And, you know, it was pretty seamless. It was really easy to upload the items, and they also have a kind of a store where you can buy things to put into your auction, and you get, you don't get the full bidder's price, but you get a pretty good chunk of it, which is also kind of nice to, you know, have some more, some stuff with some more pizzazz, like, you know, autographed sports memorabilia and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good tool. They partner with a couple of companies that allow them to have sports memorabilia, vacations. I mean, you can get some really expensive stuff too, like, you know, cruises and crazy stuff. So yeah, I love that about this. It just increases the number of ways to add money. The other thing that that is, though, is that it takes sometimes away from the community. So I just caution us when we open it up to more people outside our church, or when we're buying and selling items that our folks don't have any stake in. Sometimes it can then start to feel a little like, who are the people in the room now? But it's all going to a good cause. It's all money worth raising, and so there are lots of reasons to do it. Are any of you running events that are big enough that you might want to look at expensive enterprise level platforms? Unless you raise your hand and say, yes, I'm going to skip.
Could you quickly just say, what do they do for us that the others don't?
Well, the more expensive, the more you pay, the more processes they include. So ClickBid, for example, you can add ticketing, you can add the whole online event, you can do the competitive funding. It's all within their system. They have no transaction fees, right? So you're paying $795 to set it up, and then you're paying like $200 if you want to do ticketing, and $200 if you want to do funding, another $200 if you want to do this. So it can get expensive, but they don't charge any transaction fees. That's one way. Another one is that they really give you one place to do your whole event. So they'll even run like a Zoom sort of a thing where they have their own room where you can come in and it's decorated the way you would want it to be decorated. They really trick stuff out for you. Again, they can be really expensive, but if you have the money to spend and you're going to raise a lot of money, sometimes it is worth it to use these, because then it's completely seamless. Out of the budget of some folks though. Any questions on platforms or any ones that I didn't cover here that you want to know about or talk about before I move on to step by step how you might run an auction? Yeah, Jay.
I'm sorry, I put a question in the chat box. Are these setup fees per auction, or is it like you set up your organization and then it's that fee is your organization?
Brilliant question, and it depends. So some of them will, some of them you pay the setup fee and it'll give you like 2 auctions a year. But you know, next year you'd have to pay again. Some of them are unlimited, like you pay once, you set up, you're good. You pay more and you can get up to like 7 events or things like that. So it's really, that's a good question.
And the other one is, I've also heard some people talking about Bidding Owl. I've never used them, but they say that it's a pretty good organization as well.
Yeah, Bidding Owl is also a good organization. I didn't review them today, but they are also a really good tool to use. They're like many of these other ones that give you the ability to run multiple auctions or events, and they're pretty easy to use, which is what's good about Bidding Owl.
Davey, can I ask the group, and you, this is Emily from St. John's and Ross. It just feels, I'm struggling with feeling the question about if it's really appropriate to do an auction right now. Like,
let's put a sort of for this.
if sort of peddling stuff just doesn't feel like it's honoring the challenges we're facing right now. Just curious if other people are wrestling with that.
Emily, I'm also in Marin. And as I said, I ran some auctions for my son's school for many years, and the legwork involved in getting the donations was huge. And I don't know, asking businesses for donations to an auction right now, just that, I'm not sure I could do that. I mean, I would just be really embarrassed to be saying, you know, like, I know you're not doing business right now, but can you help out the church? That would be my difficulty with having an auction right now, is how do you get the stuff to auction off?
Well, one of the things that I was toying with doing an auction of is a COVID crafts auction, because everybody being at home is doing their quilting and their, you know, whatever. And I thought that might kind of be thematically, kind of feel a little bit better, because we're not asking businesses, we're asking people, hey, that stuff that you've been making while you've been at home, you know, the scarves and the, you know, the knitting and to do some kind of auction like that. I don't know that it would bring in a terrible amount of money, but.
Right. I think Emily and others, I think you're bringing up a really good point, and perhaps it's the question to ask about this year. The thing is that, so first, the needs of the church haven't changed. In fact, they're as acute as they ever have been. And our need to raise money and our need to fund ministry as outreach is perhaps even more acute in some neighborhoods than it's ever been. So if events are a thing that you've done and you found success in them, we still need to be able to run them this year because we're not going away, neither is COVID. And so our churches still need to function. So I think the question about what kinds of things are appropriate is a really good one. And so more stuff, do we need more stuff right now? It's a question. Susan's point about asking organizations to give gift certificates that you'll not be able to redeem till 2022 or other things, probably not a good idea this year. But Patricia's idea of more the craft bazaar bake sale idea, if we can use auction tools, especially free ones, for things that we've made or things that are low cost, it could be a good way to do it. The other thing, my dining room is full of 3 bags of stuff I can't get rid of right now because Goodwill is closed. Maybe an auction would be a good way to get rid of some stuff that we've been cleaning out. I mean, that's not to say dump your stuff on your parishioners, but there are things that that we can't do right now with sharing or the barter swap economy that we are used to. Maybe making some money for the church is not a bad way to do it. But I think that there are some theological and ethical questions. I see a couple of questions. Nicole first and then Melanie.
Oh, this was an idea, which is, to offer experiences. There are probably a lot of people who can have a class. Maybe it's cooking class. Maybe it's, some skill that they'd like to share. That's another option that I've heard people talking about.
Yeah, those are always good in nonprofit auctions anyway. Because they're personal and they're relational and they keep people together. And so if you can do your cooking class online with, hook up your laptop or your iPad in your kitchen, it's a great thing to do, and sharing and bidding on those sorts of experiences makes a lot of sense. Melanie, what was your question or contribution?
So I'm just toying with the idea of a reverse auction. And we've had silent auctions for several years, but actually we want to support the businesses in town on Laurel Avenue. So maybe the auction is a gift certificate to all those places that have given us things in the past. And I think some of our people have the means and would be willing to do that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
What a really beautiful idea. If, your church gives back to the community that's given so much, you're still, you're raising some money for the church, but you're making, then you're sending people to those businesses. I love it. I really think that that's a beautiful idea.
I think it would go beyond the church. People would, in the community, that would be one where I would, and not as a fundraiser for the church, more of a, here's what the church is doing for the community. I can imagine people who never have come into the church saying, I like that idea and I want to support the kids' bookstore. So yep. I'll give $150.
I love that. Melanie, so community minded.
Great idea.
Good. Jay, you were breaking into that conversation too.
I think, Melanie, I think your idea is exactly right. Even more so, saying we'll buy $100 in gift certificates or gift cards, and if you can give us an extra 10%, which then would be the profit, quote unquote, that we as an auction are making. Someone asked, how do we make all this money on a rummage sale? We actually go out and buy stuff and then sell it. And we make a lot of money that way because people are willing to pay more than what it actually costs when they know the money is going to charity. And so a $25 gift card may sell for $40 if it's someplace that people know and want to go. Last year, we actually auctioned off an Instapot. And you can buy them in every store and everywhere. And yet everybody was bidding on it. because they wanted it and it was an excuse, and they knew if they won it, they were going to use it, but the money was going to the church.
I love it. What are some other ideas? You guys are more creative than I. Share with each other. This is wonderful. So we've talked about auctions. Let's talk a little bit more about the way you might do. Marge, you talked about sort of Oktoberfest tickets and food. Let's talk a little bit about how you all might do a dinner or an Oktoberfest or something like that that's about people getting together and eating. What are some events that you all do that are like that? Or are you thinking about it? How can we collectively help you with that?
Well, I've certainly done an Oktoberfest before. I'm German, but I don't have no idea how to do that online.
See, the only part of that I think you'd do online would be the ticket selling if you did anything.
Yeah, a little hard to.
How do you do the food?
Well, what I'm saying is we'll do the food and people order it ahead of time and pay for it, and then they just come by and drive by and we give it. It's a takeout.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible way to do it. You know, be able to have people come. You pack up all that food. You've prepared it safely. You put it into containers or whatever. It's a lot of work, though. Yeah, it's truly a lot of
Well,
work.
the guys are used to. They're used to doing the cooking. It would just be the boxing up. You know.
Yeah, I like it. How much money does your Oktoberfest usually make?
So I'm sitting here thinking if we sold the we'd make a couple $1,000 maybe. You know.
I mean, that's a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
So I like it. It is a lot of work, but you may get, I mean, so is it for more than just your church community usually? Do you get people?
I think we could get more than just our church community to come and pick up food because everybody's looking for food.
Right.
You know.
Right. I like it. I guess you could have like an oompa band in one corner of the parking lot playing.
Yeah, or even just have the music with the speakers. Make our rector stand in the middle and dance or something.
She'd be into that. Well, Deb would like that, I think.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think that dinners are a really good way. I mean, both to do, as you've said, to pick up and drop off, but also to share a communal meal if you do have everybody come back and then get online where they can be at their dining room with the camera and their family and they're having fellowship with each other.
Yeah.
It's a way to build that community and keep that up. I think right now one of the things that, well, I know this, that we're seeing in our churches is that people who are attending our live streamed services are in some ways people that we don't often see or have ever seen on Sundays before. We get a lot of our own folks who come, of course, but we're getting people who may not even be Episcopalian, who want to see what's going on, who are hungry for community, people who have moved away and want to come back and, you know, maybe just see what's going on at Epiphany. They've left. They're living on the other side of the country now, but they'll check you out for an online service. And so we're seeing that our communities, we even have people joining us from Pennsylvania. You never know where people are going to come from. So people are joining our virtual services and they're not our usual Sunday crowd necessarily. And so doing events like this reaches out to them, right? So they may have dropped in on a few Sundays, and if you start announcing these, they could imagine themselves taking part and joining your dinner or your talent show or your auction. I think it's a cool idea.
Can I ask Davey, besides Zoom, has anybody used other platforms for these type of events? And is it more successful or less successful?
Zoom is certainly the one that right now has kind of come to everyone's attention, and we're used to it. So one of my recommendations is that you use the technology that people are most familiar with to do these kinds of things. Don't spring something new for your event and have people try to learn a new platform unless they have to. So if you're using Zoom already, keep going with it, and it works. I know a lot of people are doing Google Hangouts or Google Meets to do this, and it works as well. YouTube Live has a way of doing it. Facebook Live is just for one room, one cam or multi cameras, but one space. Doesn't allow you to join up unless you're coming in and out of other people's feeds. So Zoom, I think, is probably the best, and most of us have either bought a Zoom account or are using our work Zoom account for personal use and church use, and it seems to be working right now. So a lot of us have access to it, and that's good. Also, Zoom doesn't require you; it only requires the person who sets it up to have an account. Everyone else can have free accounts with Zoom if they're not regular users. And so in that regard, there are very few barriers to using it. So I would recommend continuing with it. Melanie, you talked about a talent show. What are you thinking about?
We are going to try to start collecting some videos. We were supposed to be at Bishop's Ranch. God bless them. I know they had to evacuate. And obviously we wouldn't have been there this year, but we have the Labor Day big parish retreat every year. Usually about 80 of us go, half of them are kids. So we thought we would start collecting talent-y things as part of that, and then build more and just do them all in a big blast at the end of stewardship season. This is not my idea. I'm just bringing it to the group and learning how I can help make that happen.
It could be fun. I mean, I certainly think that there's a way that you can turn that into an event, right? So it's a collection of videos. It sounds like people are uploading them. Are they doing that on YouTube, or are they doing it on?
We don't know yet. So any suggestions would be helpful.
YouTube's probably the easiest, but certainly Instagram stories. No, I take that away. Okay. They're a little harder because you have to find them again and go back to them. YouTube is probably the best for something like that because you can record it anytime and you can play it back anytime, and it's a free service if you have a Gmail account. So it's easy to low barrier. I would say that you want to find a way to make it feel like an event, though. So if you're, for example, showing it on Zoom, the person sharing the screen, it would be better if one person with the best internet connection is sharing their screen and running all the YouTubes. Okay. Because so we're all looking at each other on our internet connections. If you're running something off of your internet connection and then having other people try to run it off theirs as well, it starts to lag, and that's no fun for anyone. So one view, rather than saying, hey, Davey, let's see your YouTube, and you don't know what Davey's internet is like. So that's one way to do it. I would make some hype out of it, though. So I know that you're trying to run it at the end of your stewardship campaign. So maybe have people register for it, especially use Eventbrite or some other free ticketing thing so that people are like, oh, this is the thing. Maybe, design your space or your moment so that it looks like, a stage, or it feels like a show. Make it into something so that you can run it. You
Out of curiosity, go ahead. Go ahead.
could
I was
have
gonna say,
filtered-
this is sounding really good to go with stewardship.
yeah.
I was going to ask what your stewardship theme was.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you know yet?
Talent and treasure.
I like that.
That's, geez, see, her brain works like mine. Yeah.
Yeah, time, talent, and treasure.
Melanie, what is your theme?
I'm not in charge of that either. They're coming up with that next week on the timeline that you gave us.
Oh, well, good.
But we are talking about sort of the talent part of the time, talent, treasures.
I like it. I think that's great. Listen to you all. Very creative.
So the ingathering of the pledge cards is the treasure, and then they're going to be sharing their time and talent, and like it.
This idea has legs. Good. Well, I'm going to go back and share my screen and finish this up. And what we're going to talk about is just the last, here are all the steps you need to run an event online, and then we'll catch up any more questions. This whole thing has been recorded, so you can share it with other people. I'll also send you the slides so that you can, if there are people that need to see it and weren't here, they can take a look at it. All right, so how to run an event step by step. So now is the time to start putting your plans in place, pick your theme and get out the information. Take the same care to run an online event that you use for a in-person event. So that means if you usually hire a graphic designer to come up with a logo, if you usually send out invitations, do all those things. Make it feel like, here we are, we're doing our annual thing. It's time to pay attention to this. Understand, review, and test all of your various technologies. Some of them have a lead time where you have to verify or register or set it up with your banking accounts, things like that. So take the time now to pick your technology, to review it, and to make sure that it has tested well. Make sure that your technology, if you are collecting money for auctions or sweepstakes or things like that, interfaces somehow with your accounting software. Keep in mind that you are responsible for issuing tax receipts. If you don't know how to issue a tax receipt on silent auction items or on sweepstakes, you can contact me in your development office at the diocese, and I will help you work through that. And so yeah, we can do that for you. Ticket sales. So if you're selling tickets, we recommend Eventbrite. If you're using another platform, what ticket sales does is it gives you the option to set different price points, to have the payment processing usually incorporated into it, and it usually gives you the opportunity to promote your event through your various communication channels. So if you're doing a newsletter, if you're doing a Facebook or Twitter or Instagram feed, it integrates really well with that, and you can sell your tickets. If you're doing an auction, usually in the ticket selling, you can feature items that you're going to be selling at your auction, start building up the hype, tell people what to expect. When you run your event, have fun. Gather on your platform. You all know by now how to use the security features in Zoom. If not, the diocese has a tech consultant. We have paid for a tech consultant to work with our congregations through the end of the year, I believe, and every congregation has access to this person. They will tell you how to run everything that you're doing virtually, your streaming services, your events, all of it. They will walk through all of that with you. That's something that Abbott, in her role as CTO, Canon to the Ordinary, has set up for all of our congregations. So take advantage of that. Jay, sorry, you'd have to probably work something out with Abbott. keep the addresses, the speeches, the speechifying, the talking heads to as short a time as possible. We already think that these things go on too long in most events. They'll go on even longer in an online event, so keep them short, scripted even. And if you're using Zoom, don't close the chat. Let people, like they do at any event, talk to each other, across the room, lean into each other. This is about fellowship and fun. If you're running an auction and you're setting it up yourself, make sure your photos are good of your items so that you can represent them well. Have somebody who knows how to take a picture and set up some lighting to do that for you. Write interesting descriptions, because this is all people, they're not gonna be able to walk around and pick up things and take a look at them. So everything you give them, the picture and the copy, is everything they're gonna have to entice them into wanting your stuff. Select your technology. Again, you can create your own bidding increments usually. So, you know, this item starts at this price and it bids in 20s or in 50s or whatever you're trying to accomplish. And make it interactive. You can, you can laugh at people, like, Davey, you really could use that gift certificate to get your nails done. They look like a mess. Whatever. Have fun with people. Enjoy this. You're all getting together for a good time. If you're doing a fund to need and a text to give, they really can add like super fast money to the end of an event. They're great just to like increase your donations, and there's nothing that you have to do for it. Select a platform. Some of them that I've referenced here include it for free or in the setup fee, I should say. Others, you can find it. Don't be shy. This is what we were saying before. So in your events, you are raising this money for a good purpose. You are raising this money because the mission of the church is still continuing. The doors are closed, but the church is open, and we need to be mindful of that. So be confident. Don't be shy. Ask for the money. Ask for what people need, and expect people to come and show up and have fun. Finally, make sure you end with lots of gratitude for everyone, for all the people who have helped you set it up and who have contributed, who have donated, who did all the legwork, who did all the photography, who set up your caterer, all that. Make sure that you end with gratitude and you give people next steps on how they can continue learning about and participating in your ministry. This is especially important if you are bringing people on. So sometimes we use events at church as friend-raising events or as new member things. So you might bring a friend along. So make sure you give them the information about what you're doing with this money, talk about next steps, how you can stay in tune with the ministry that's happening in your place. I'm going to stop again and stop sharing my screen and bring us back into the main room and see if there are any last questions before we close. Any questions on anything we've covered? Any more ideas you want to bounce off this group?
Okay, I know that we are talking about virtual and online everything, but are there ways to integrate people in our congregation, the older people who aren't tech savvy, into these events? That's something I struggle, because if we're going to do a parish gathering, something that's supposed to be as much about fellowship as it is about fundraising, like a dinner, are there ways those people can participate?
Well, so yes. I think, and I'll give an answer, and then I think other people probably have some great tools. When we're talking about virtual tools, I realize that we are leaving some people out of that conversation who either don't know yet about the technology or aren't comfortable. Maybe they're, for all the reasons. One thing that I've seen that has been just really beautiful is a congregation here, Transfiguration in San Mateo. They mobilized their Gen Z cohort and they got on the old-fashioned telephone, which works, by the way. It's a great way to reach out to people. They got on the phone and they walked people who had never set up Zoom before or Facebook Live to see how those tools worked. And they had a way to talk with each other about that and brought some people on who weren't comfortable. So that solved some of that problem. I think when we're talking about people who are isolated or who are shut in, we obviously can't go and share dinner with them, but we can certainly drop it off at their home. We can make them feel included. Zoom allows you to call in. So the phone, it always works, right? So they can hear and be heard, but they can't see and be seen. So if they have a phone number and they know what it is, they can be eating their meal and laughing with their friends and hearing voices that are familiar to them. And I think it's a really great way to reach out. And I'm glad that Zoom does allow people to get on the phone if they're not video savvy enough to do it. What are some other experiences of incorporating folks who are not yet incorporated into technology that you've experienced? Claudia, I see you had your hand up.
Yes, we have a parishioner who's 106 years old, and she attends our weekly Zoom services. So sometimes we only see the top of her head, but we know that she's there. And how she got set up, I'm not quite sure. I'm sure she had some help, but she's amazing and she's there. So I think just sending help out to help these people get set up, and then it's really an important part of their week. And yeah, I appreciate all the suggestions and information today, because we were just kind of stuck trying to figure out what to do this year. So
great, you can do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Melanie, you have.
We have a couple things. First of all, when we do like our chapel time on Wednesday, we actually call two people from one of our cell phones to theirs, and somebody just puts it up next to the speaker. So those two people are involved. It's on the phone, but we totally involve them and ask them questions, and it's a little goofy, but it works. The other thing is we found some tablets on a big sale on probably Amazon and bought a bunch, and our fabulous parish administrator was able to set up 3 buttons on them. So here's the button you push on Sunday morning for the service. Here's the button you do for coffee hour. Here's the button you do for the Wednesday chapel service. Don't touch anything else. It took some time, especially for one woman, but she's finally now joining us for everything. And it cost less than $100 plus several hours of parish admin time. And I had to get the neighbor's Wi-Fi system and everything else, but she's participating every Sunday, and everybody cheers when Barbara comes on.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
So look for sales on tablets.
Great. Good wisdom. Are there other ways that people are incorporating people who aren't yet on technology?
You also don't need to pay for tablets. I put a plea out to the congregation, to anybody that got a new iPad and had an old one sitting around, and I was amazed. I think I've gotten 15 that I've then paid out to other people, because everybody has old technology sitting around that they don't know what to do with.
Great tip, Jay. Thank you. Just because we've discarded it doesn't mean somebody else can't pick it up and use it. What are some other lingering questions you have about events that we can talk through together, or anything that we've talked about today?
My question would be, if you know of some congregations that have done virtual things like talent shows that we could call and say, what were the learnings?
No one's done them yet, but they're all planning them. No, and in our diocese, I don't know of anyone who's done one yet. So as I do, I will pass them along to you all and get some more information. But yes, we need to build up a sort of local network of experts. You all are going to be my experts going forward. You'll have implemented some of these ideas.
Is there a
I will put a call out to people in my network and people in the TENS network and see who's doing virtual talent shows and see if we can get any collective wisdom, Melanie, and send it your way.
Thank you very much.
I wondered if there was a fundraising group, like I'm a member, because I do communications for the church, and I'm a member of Episcopal Communicators Network on Facebook. Is there a similar thing for fundraisers? Does anybody know?
No, I wish that the Episcopal Church did something like that for stewardship and development folks, but so few congregations have that role. I mean, they all do stewardship, right? But very few of them have a permanent person. So it just hasn't happened. There are some great organizations where you can get resources. TENS.org, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. If you visit that website, SEEP, the Consortium of Endowed Episcopal Parishes. You don't have to have an endowment to be able to use their stuff. They have great resources. I would also look at the Episcopal Community Foundation, Episcopal Church Foundation, sorry, ECF. And I would look at Horizons. Horizon Stewardship is another, they're not Episcopal specific, but they are a group that supports many churches in fundraising, and they're full of good people. And they put out a lot of resources as well. So
yeah, well, we've chosen our stewardship campaign. We're using saltproject.org.
Oh,
which has a very specifically designed this year virtual stewardship campaign that is designed around social media, and it's plug and play with sermons and letters and everything.
Good.
It's Together for Joy is the theme, and it's based on Psalm 98, the Sing a New Song. And so it's talking in a way about reimagining things during the time of COVID is part of that, and all of us singing a different song, singing a new song. So that's one thing that we've used, that salt.org. If other people, we've used some of their ads and things like that in the past.
Yeah, they're great. But I wish that there were like a network, a bigger network.
For fundraising was what I was looking for more than for stewardship, because I've looked at some of the stewardship things, but that's what got me here today, because this was specifically about fundraising and closing that gap after we've done stewardship.
Good. Glad you're here. Anything else for the good of the order, friends? Any questions or last comments? Thank you for being willing to share your ideas, because that made this so much more interesting, I think. I will send out this slide deck to you all and a recording so you can share it with your event committees. And I will also continue to get information and get it out to you about once people have done these events, how they're going, and see what's really going on in the church. I thank you for your time. I have one thing for you all. I'm popping it into the chat. There's a survey. It takes 3 questions. It'll take you 2 minutes. You please fill it out and let us know what other kinds of webinars you might like the Diocese Development Office to create. We will get on those. And also we have one more scheduled next week on building virtual communities around stewardship. So if you like this, come back. We're doing more on that, and we'll be adding some in September around planned giving. So keep checking in with us. We'll get it out on DowCal News and Events and on our Facebook page, and hope that you'll join us for future events.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, friends.
Thank you.
Much love to you. Blessings. Pray for the Bishop's Ranch.
Yeah, I had not heard that they had evacuated. I'd heard about Dorothy's Rest. So
The fire is about 2 miles to the west of the Bishop's Ranch right now.
okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've been kind of watching things down here because my son's on the other, got fire on the other side of the ridge from him. So
not good.
Prayers for all. Thank you.
For all. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you, friends. Good to see you.
okay, bye.